Welcome to Kaede's SITREP. Regarding about today's podcast, the situation is currently evolving, and future developments may occur. Please refer to reliable sources for the latest updates. This content is based on publicly available news at the time of creation. However, it is important to independently verify all information. There is no intention to criticize the Indonesian government, spread misinformation, or incite anxiety through this content. Thank you, and enjoy my podcast.
All right, so let's dive into Indonesia's security landscape this week. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. Terrorism, violence, and social anxieties all kind of swirling together.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these seemingly isolated incidents, when you step back and look at them together, they really reveal a much bigger picture, the connections, the underlying currents running through Indonesia's security environment.
Definitely. And we're going to start with terrorism concerns, always top of mind. Densus 88, Indonesia's Counterterrorism Squad, has been busy this week apprehending 3 suspected terrorists in Jawa.
These arrests, specifically in Kudus, Demak, and Karanganyar, they caught the attention of security forces because the suspects are believed to have ties to the Ansar Dawla group, known for their pro-ISIS stance and their use of online platforms, really, to spread their propaganda.
Yeah, and the fact that they were using an everyday ojek driver. I mean, that's a bit unsettling, isn't it?
It's a chilling tactic, blending into communities, assuming those ordinary roles, makes detection that much harder. The enemy isn't always hiding in some far-off place. It could be right next door, which is a scary thought.
And the evidence seized 20 sharp weapons, a bow and arrows, workout equipment, 30 books on jihad, communication devices, radical banners. It's a worrying mix.
It really is. The weapons, especially the traditional machetes and the bow and arrows, those suggest a preparedness for violence. Then you have the books, the banners, all pointing to a deep ideological indoctrination.
Definitely concerning. The authorities, though, are responding with a push for increased vigilance, especially at the community level.
Exactly. Empowering communities. They're urging neighborhood leaders, the Kichwa RTs, to be much more vigilant, keeping an eye out for newcomers who might be isolating themselves, exhibiting extremist views, or even those sudden changes in behavior.
So it's a two-pronged approach: proactive law enforcement and grassroots awareness.
Precisely. And with those major events coming up, like the Pilkada Serentak, those are Indonesia's regional elections, and of course, New Year celebrations, this vigilance is all the more crucial. These events, they draw huge crowds, making them potential targets, and those weapons, the propaganda, it's hard not to be concerned.
Yeah, a lot to digest, but on a slightly more hopeful note, there have been some interesting developments involving former members of Jemaah Islamiyah, or JI.
Ah, yes, JI, responsible for past attacks. The 2002 Bali bombing, of course. We're seeing a significant shift in their approach. A dialogue was held on November 3rd in Depok. Former JI members and Densus 88. Formal event titled Dengan Ilmu Syari Kita Kembali Penguan NKRI translates to, with Islamic knowledge, we return to the embrace of the Republic of Indonesia.
I remember reading about that. The head of Densus 88, Jurgen Paul Sentopro, he wasn't even on the speakers list. They asked him to speak impromptu. He even dressed in civilian clothes for the event, which is unusual.
It really was unexpected. A departure from the usual confrontational approach. It shows a willingness on both sides to engage in a constructive way, which is key for any successful de-radicalization effort.
It's like a rewriting of their relationship, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Bridging the divide, recognizing those shared goals. And what's remarkable? Sentot didn't shy away from the past. He directly addressed the history of conflict between Densus 88 and JI. Even mentioned the Bali bombing.
Must have taken courage to do that, but it was probably a necessary step.
And you know what? His honesty met with applause. The former JI members, they seemed genuinely committed to a new path.
Speaking of new paths, former JI members haven't been idle. They've been working on a document outlining their reasons for disbanding and their rejection of violence.
Parawigianto, the last emir, the leader of JI before they disbanded, he presented arguments against JI's former ideology, 42 reasons based on Islamic law for the group to stay disbanded, and they put it all into a 900-page document. At Tatharuf, extremisme, terrorism, radicalism, dan kekerasan, meaning extremism, terrorism, radicalism, and violence.
Wow, 900 pages. That's a serious undertaking. What are they planning on doing with this document?
The plan is to publish it as a book, distribute it to all former JI members. It's a bold move, using their own theological framework to dismantle those narratives they once promoted. Powerful tool to counter extremist ideology and prevent future violence.
This entire collaboration, the dialogue, it's groundbreaking, isn't it? Could be a game changer, not just in Indonesia, but globally. It shows that even those seemingly insurmountable ideological divides, they can be bridged, paving the way for a more peaceful future.
It's a beacon of hope, definitely, and a testament to the power of dialogue, understanding, and a shared commitment to peace.
Unfortunately, not all the news is positive this week. We need to address the disturbing incident in Deli Serdang, Sumatra Utara, involving Indonesian Army personnel.
Yes, this incident, which took place on the night of November 8th, is deeply concerning. A group of 33 soldiers were involved in an attack on local residents. A 61-year-old man was killed, and several others were injured.
33 soldiers. What could possibly have triggered such a large-scale attack?
The investigation is still ongoing, but initial reports indicate that it was a dispute between those soldiers and residents that escalated into violence. A reminder that security threats can arise from unexpected sources, even those tasked with protecting us.
Raises serious concerns about military discipline, the potential for conflict between security forces and the public.
It absolutely does. Underscores the need for clear protocols, robust training, and stringent accountability within the armed forces. These incidents, they erode public trust, which can have far-reaching consequences for stability and security.
It reminds us that a secure environment requires more than just counterterrorism efforts. It's about fostering harmonious civil-military relations, ensuring those entrusted with power wield it responsibly.
Absolutely. Security is not just about preventing attacks, it's about nurturing an environment of trust, respect, and collaboration between all segments of society.
And speaking of the complexities of security, there's another case that highlights the social anxieties and economic hardships many in Indonesia face. A different kind of threat, but one that can be just as destabilizing.
You're referring to the child abandonment case, also in Deli Serdang. On October 29th, a mother was arrested after throwing her child into a ditch. It happened after an argument with her in-laws. A truly heartbreaking case, revealing the immense pressure some individuals are under, leading to those extreme actions.
It's hard to comprehend the desperation that could lead someone to do such a thing, such a tragic situation.
While the trigger was a family dispute, it sheds light on broader issues: mental health, social support systems, economic hardship. These factors, they create immense stress, leading to instability and those acts of desperation, as we saw in this case.
This incident really underscores the need for a broader understanding of security. Safeguarding against external threats is important, but creating a society where individuals feel supported, empowered, and resilient in the face of challenges is just as crucial.
Precisely. True security encompasses not just physical safety, but also social and economic well-being. It's about addressing the root causes of instability and creating a society where everyone feels valued and secure.
So we've seen a mix of developments this week, proactive measures and concerning incidents. It's a complex picture of Indonesia's security landscape.
What's intriguing is how each incident, while unique, points to a larger interconnected web, challenges and opportunities. Whether it's that innovative collaboration between Densus 88 and former JI members, the violence involving the military, or the tragic consequences of those social and economic pressures, all threads in the fabric of Indonesia's security landscape.
This week has truly been a whirlwind of information, hasn't it? Terrorist arrests, a concerning incident with the Indonesian Army, and that heartbreaking case exposing those deep social and economic vulnerabilities.
It really has. And it's striking how all of these incidents occurred within a relatively short time frame and in close proximity to each other. It highlights just how dynamic and fluid the security environment is.
A clear reminder that security is multifaceted, demanding a holistic approach. Boots on the ground are important, but addressing the underlying factors that fuel instability and building a resilient society, that's just as vital.
Couldn't agree more. And that's where proactive measures come in community engagement, mental health support, promoting accountability within institutions. Not isolated solutions, but interconnected pieces of a larger puzzle.
It's a complex picture, to be sure. But by grasping the connections between these seemingly separate incidents, we can begin to develop more effective and sustainable security strategies. Seeing the bigger picture, recognizing those patterns, and understanding the root causes, that's key.
Absolutely. And it leads to a critical question. How can we, as individuals and as a society, contribute to a safer and more secure environment for everyone? What can we do to address these challenges and build a more resilient future? It really is remarkable seeing former extremists now taking an active role in countering those very ideologies they once embraced. It's quite a shift. And speaking of shifts, remember that dialogue we discussed, the one between Densis 88 and former members of Jamaat Islamiyah? There's more to that
Yeah,
story.
that was fascinating. What else can you tell us about it?
Well, that dialogue, held on November 3rd in Depok, was a formally organized event. It was called Dialogue Kebangsaan, and the title was really telling. Dengan ilmu syari, kita kembali ke pangkuan NKRA, which translates to, with Islamic knowledge, we return to the embrace of the Republic of Indonesia.
The title itself speaks volumes, doesn't it? It points to a genuine desire for reconciliation, a shared commitment to a peaceful path forward.
It really does. And what's even more striking is that the head of Densis 88, Irjen Paul Sentot Prasetyo, wasn't even on the initial list of speakers.
I remember reading about that. It was quite a surprise. He wasn't scheduled to speak, but the former JI members specifically requested to hear from him.
Exactly. They asked him to speak impromptu. And to make things even more interesting, Sentot, who usually appears in uniform for these types of events, chose to attend in civilian clothes.
That's quite a statement, wouldn't you say? A real gesture of good faith.
Absolutely. It was a deliberate attempt to create a different kind of atmosphere, one that was less confrontational and more conducive to open dialogue. It marked a clear departure from that traditional, often adversarial, approach to counterterrorism.
It seems like they were trying to build bridges rather than reinforce those existing divides.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that shared goal of peace and security. And you know what's truly remarkable? Sentot didn't shy away from the past. He openly acknowledged the history of conflict between Densis 88 and JI, even going so far as to mention the Bali bombing.
That must have been a difficult conversation to have. It takes a lot of courage to address such a sensitive topic, especially in that kind of setting.
It does, but I think it was a necessary step towards fostering genuine understanding and reconciliation. And you know what? His honesty was met with applause from the former JI members.
Really? That's incredible.
It is. It suggests that there's a genuine willingness on their part to listen, to learn, and perhaps even to forgive. It's a hopeful sign.
It certainly is. But this dialogue wasn't just about acknowledging past wrongs. It was also about defining a new way forward. What else did they discuss?
Well, Parawijanto, the last Amir, or leader of JI before its disbandment, also spoke at the event. And his message was a powerful one. He presented a compelling argument for why JI should remain disbanded, outlining 42 reasons, all grounded in Islamic law, for rejecting violence and extremism.
42 reasons. Wow, that's quite a comprehensive list. It sounds like they put a lot of thought into this.
They have, and it's not just a list, it's a meticulously crafted document, a 900-page document to be exact, titled At Tatharuf, Extremism, Terrorism, Radicalism, dan Kekerasan, which translates to Extremism, Terrorism, Radicalism, and Violence.
900 pages. That's a serious undertaking. What are they planning to do with this document?
The plan is to publish it as a book and distribute it widely among former JI members. It's a bold strategy, utilizing their own theological framework to dismantle the very narratives they once used to justify violence and extremism. It has the potential to be an incredibly powerful tool in the fight against terrorism.
It's using their own ideology against itself. It seems like a very effective way to reach those who might still be clinging to those extremist beliefs.
Exactly. And it's not just former JI members who are supportive of this approach. The head of the National Counterterrorism Agency, or BNPT, Komjan Pol Eddie Hartono, was also present at the dialogue and expressed his full support for Densis 88 and their work with former extremists. It's encouraging to see this level of cooperation and support from different government agencies.
This collaboration between Densis 88 and former JI members is really groundbreaking. It has the potential to revolutionize counterterrorism strategies, not just in Indonesia, but around the world. It shows that dialogue and understanding can be powerful tools in the fight against extremism, even when dealing with those who were once deeply committed to violence.
It's a beacon of hope, showing us that change is possible even in the most challenging circumstances.
It certainly is. Now, let's shift gears for a moment and revisit the arrests of those 3 suspected Ansar Dawla members in Jawa. We talked about the evidence seized during those operations. Can you remind us what was found?
Of course. The items seized during those arrests paint a rather disturbing picture. The discovery of 20 sharp weapons, including golok, which are traditional machetes, suggests they were prepared for violence. That's always a red flag.
And it wasn't just machetes, right? There were also those bow and arrows.
Yes, those were quite concerning. The bow and arrows, along with the 30 books on jihad and the radical banners, all point to a group that was actively preparing for something more than just online propaganda. It raises concerns about their potential to carry out acts of violence, especially with those major events like the regional elections and the New Year celebrations coming up.
It's a reminder that the threat of terrorism is real and constantly evolving.
It is, and the fact that one of the suspects was an oject driver, someone who blends seamlessly into everyday life, makes detection that much more difficult. It highlights the challenges authorities face in identifying and preventing these kinds of activities.
It also underscores the need for increased vigilance at the community level. Authorities are urging neighborhood leaders, those Quechua RTs, to be more proactive in identifying individuals who might be isolating themselves, exhibiting extremist views, or showing any sudden, unexplained changes in behavior.
Absolutely, early detection is key. But it's a delicate balance. We don't want to create a climate of fear and suspicion where people are afraid to interact with newcomers or report concerns out of fear of being labeled as paranoid.
It's about finding that right balance, isn't it? Encouraging vigilance without creating unnecessary anxiety.
Exactly. It's about fostering a sense of community, a space where people feel comfortable reaching out for help or reporting concerns without fear of judgment or reprisal. It's about building trust, both within communities and between communities and law enforcement.
It's a shared responsibility. We all have a role to play in creating a safer environment. Now, shifting to a different but equally concerning security issue, let's revisit that tragic case of the mother who abandoned her child in Deli Serdang. It's a heartbreaking story that reveals the profound social and economic pressures many in Indonesia are facing.
It's a stark reminder that security is not just about physical safety, it's about addressing those underlying vulnerabilities that can lead to desperation, and in this case, to a truly devastating act.
The details of this case are truly disturbing. The mother, Husna Hulki, was arrested a few days after the incident on November 1st. Police reports indicate that this was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was the culmination of a long, simmering conflict with her in-laws, coupled with severe financial stress. It's hard to imagine the despair that would drive someone to such an extreme act.
It is. This case sheds light on the broader issues plaguing Indonesian society. We're talking about poverty, lack of opportunity, limited access to mental health services. These factors can create immense pressure, leading to feelings of hopelessness and desperation.
It's a reminder that those underlying social and economic problems can be just as destabilizing as any external threat.
Exactly. While we often focus on terrorism and those more visible threats, cases like this highlight the importance of addressing those root causes of social unrest. We need to strengthen social safety nets, improve access to mental health resources, and create a more supportive environment for those who are struggling.
It's about recognizing that true security encompasses more than just physical safety. It's about social and economic well-being as well. It's about creating a society where everyone feels valued, supported, and empowered to overcome those challenges.
Couldn't agree more. This incident, while tragic, underscores the fact that security is a multifaceted issue requiring a more holistic approach. We can't just focus on preventing attacks, we need to address those underlying factors that contribute to instability and create conditions that allow individuals and communities to thrive.
It's about building a society that is not only safe from external threats, but also resilient and capable of supporting its most vulnerable members.
Absolutely. It's about creating a society where everyone feels safe, secure, and hopeful about the future.
So this week has been a mixed bag, hasn't it? We've seen both positive developments, like that groundbreaking dialogue between Densis 88 and former JI members, and deeply concerning incidents, like the attack involving the Indonesian Army and the tragic case of child abandonment. It's a lot to process.
It is. But by examining these incidents together, we can start to see the bigger picture, those interconnected challenges and opportunities that make up Indonesia's complex security landscape.
It's a reminder that security is not a static concept. It's constantly evolving, requiring us to adapt our strategies and approaches to meet those ever-changing threats.
And it requires a collective effort. It's not just the responsibility of the government or law enforcement. It's about individuals, communities, civil society organizations all working together to create a safer and more secure environment for everyone.
Now that we have a deeper understanding of the complexities of Indonesia's security landscape, I think it's time we shift our focus to the proactive measures being taken to address these challenges. Let's delve into those strategies and solutions that are shaping a more secure future for Indonesia.
I'd love to. We'll explore those initiatives and solutions in our next segment. Get ready for a deep dive into the world of proactive measures and the steps being taken to create a safer, more secure, and more resilient Indonesia.
All right, let's shift gears now and focus on those proactive measures being taken to really tackle Indonesia's security challenges. We've spent some time unpacking the threats, so now let's dig into the solutions.
Sounds good. And one of the most promising strategies that's emerging is that emphasis on de-radicalization programs. We talked about the Densus 88 and former JI collaboration, which is groundbreaking. But there are other programs out there too, specifically aimed at rehabilitating and reintegrating individuals who have been involved in extremist activities.
It's hard to wrap your head around sometimes, right? I mean, trying to rehabilitate someone who's embraced those extremist ideologies. It must be incredibly difficult to shift those deeply held beliefs, especially when they're often rooted in anger and resentment.
It's definitely a complex process, no easy answers. But many of these programs use a multifaceted approach, combining things like theological guidance, psychological counseling, and even vocational training. The idea is to equip individuals with a new perspective, help them process their experiences, and give them the skills they need to build a new life, one that's free from that grip of extremism.
So it's about providing them with a path back into society, showing them that there's a different way, an alternative to violence.
Exactly. And the remarkable thing is these programs are showing some real promise. We're seeing individuals who were once deeply entrenched in these extremist groups. They're choosing to renounce violence. They're reintegrating back into society. And some are even becoming advocates against radicalism. It's proof that change is possible, even in those seemingly darkest of corners.
That's really encouraging to hear. It gives you a sense of hope. But what about preventing radicalization from happening in the first place? Are there initiatives focused on that?
Absolutely. Community-based initiatives are playing a crucial role in that effort. We're seeing a surge in programs that focus on building resilience within communities, encouraging interfaith dialogue, and providing those alternative narratives to counter all that extremist propaganda that's out there. These programs are all about addressing those root causes, the factors that can make individuals susceptible to radicalization.
It sounds like they're taking a more preventative approach, tackling the problem before it even takes root.
Precisely. And there are some fantastic examples of these initiatives in action. We're seeing youth groups organizing workshops and events that promote tolerance and understanding between different religious and ethnic groups. They create these safe spaces where young people can interact, break down stereotypes, and build those bridges of understanding.
Those are so important, especially for young people who might be more vulnerable to those extremist narratives.
Absolutely. Early intervention is key. And it's not just about young people. There are programs working directly with religious leaders as well, helping them develop counter-narratives to extremist ideology. They utilize religious texts and principles to promote peace, tolerance, and nonviolence. It's about reclaiming that narrative from those who try to twist religious teachings to justify their acts of violence.
It's inspiring to see how religion, which is sometimes misused to fuel conflict, can also be such a powerful force for peace and reconciliation.
It really is. And these community-based initiatives, they're crucial because they address those often overlooked root causes of radicalization. Social isolation, lack of opportunity, feeling marginalized, a lack of belonging. These are all factors that can make individuals vulnerable to extremist recruitment. By tackling these issues head-on, these programs help to build a more cohesive and resilient society, a society that's less susceptible to extremist influence.
So it's about creating those support systems, fostering a sense of belonging and purpose that can help individuals resist those extremist narratives.
Exactly. It's not just about counterterrorism. It's about creating a society where everyone feels valued, where they feel like they belong, and where they have the opportunity to thrive. Now, we've also talked about the need for greater accountability within security institutions, especially in light of that disturbing incident involving those Indonesian Army personnel in Deli Serdang. What steps are being taken to address that, to ensure that those entrusted with power are held responsible for their actions?
Yeah, that incident really shook people's trust in the military. What's being done to rebuild that trust?
Well, the Indonesian military has taken some steps to address this. They've publicly condemned the attack. They've pledged a thorough and transparent investigation, and they've detained the 33 soldiers involved, who are now facing disciplinary action. It's a signal that they're taking this seriously, that those responsible will be held accountable.
It's good to hear that they're taking action, but what about the victims and their families? Have any measures been taken to support them?
Yes, the military has expressed condolences and has offered support to the families affected by this tragedy. In fact, Majin TNI Muhammad Hassan, the commander of the Bukit Barisan Military Command, he personally visited the family of the man who was killed to offer his condolences and support. It's a small gesture, but it's an important one. It shows a willingness to take responsibility and to show compassion to those who have suffered as a result of this incident.
It's a step towards healing, towards rebuilding that trust that was broken.
It is, and beyond addressing this specific incident, the Indonesian military has been actively engaged in a series of reforms for several years now. These reforms are aimed at improving professionalism, accountability, and respect for human rights within the ranks.
What do those reforms look like? What concrete steps are being taken?
Well, they include things like strengthening those internal oversight mechanisms to ensure greater transparency and accountability. They're also providing comprehensive human rights training to all personnel, emphasizing the importance of respecting the rights and dignity of all individuals. It's about shifting the culture, creating an environment where human rights are paramount and where individuals feel empowered to report abuses without fear of retaliation.
It's about creating a culture of respect, accountability, and transparency within the military.
Exactly. And it's not just about internal reforms, it's also about fostering greater dialogue and accountability between the military and civil society, building those bridges of understanding, recognizing that security is a shared responsibility.
It's about breaking down those barriers and working together to create a safer and more secure society for everyone.
Precisely. Initiatives like community policing, where police officers work directly with residents to address local safety concerns, are proving to be incredibly effective. It's about building relationships, trust, and cooperation between law enforcement and the communities they serve.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored those complex security challenges, the threats posed by terrorism, the social and economic vulnerabilities that can undermine stability, and the importance of fostering strong and accountable institutions. But amidst these challenges, we've also seen signs of hope, haven't we?
We have. We've witnessed that growing recognition that a more holistic and collaborative approach is needed to effectively address these security challenges. We've seen those promising initiatives being implemented, showcasing the power of community engagement, dialogue, and reconciliation. And we've seen a commitment to reform within institutions, a recognition that security is a shared responsibility.
We've seen how former extremists can become powerful voices for peace, how communities can come together to build resilience against radicalization, and how institutions can work to earn back the trust of the people they serve. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of hope, and the belief that a better future is possible.
It is. While the journey ahead will undoubtedly be filled with challenges, these initiatives and the commitment we've seen give us reason to be optimistic. Indonesia is taking those proactive steps to create a safer, more secure, and more prosperous future for its people. And the lessons learned here, they have the potential to inspire positive change in other parts of the world facing similar challenges.
This deep dive has been a reminder that security is not just about walls and weapons. It's about people. It's about understanding their needs, addressing their concerns, and empowering them to become agents of change. It's about building a society that is resilient, inclusive, and just, a society where everyone feels safe, valued, and hopeful about the future.
Beautifully said. And it's a reminder that we all have a role to play in this effort, whether it's through supporting these initiatives, engaging in constructive dialogue, or simply spreading a message of peace and understanding. Each of us can contribute to building a more secure and harmonious world.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it has given you a deeper understanding of Indonesia's complex security landscape and the inspiring efforts underway to build a brighter future for all